Okay, you guys are going to love this. Hi. So this is how we're going to do the lesson. I'm going to teach it up here. You can listen to it on your handy dandy iPhone. And then we'll do the worksheet and it'll be awesome. So the first thing that we have to do is to use trig to find the missing sides of triangles. So if you remember what trig is, there are three main trig functions. The first one's called sine. The second one is called cosine. And the third one is called tangent. That's how they're spelled, but typically we just use the three letters. So we would say sin, cos for cosine, and tan for tangent. And when we're using them, what we're really doing with them is we're using angles and sides in relation to each other. So we're usually taking the sine of an angle, the cosine of an angle, and the tangent of an angle. And that little thing is called theta, and it stands for an angle. So, if you remember from geometry, that handy-dandy word called SOHCAHTOA. Okay, and SOHCAHTOA, what it did was it assigned trig values to sides of triangles and kind of gave you a fancy way or an easy way of memorizing what goes with what. So if you remember from geometry, if you have a right triangle, now this only works with right triangles, and we call one of the angles theta. It doesn't matter if you pick this one or this one, but when you pick your angle and you call it theta, the three sides have special words. The side across from the 90-degree angle is called the hypotenuse, which you know. The side across from the angle is called the opposite. And then the third side is called the adjacent side. And the big thing is, again, that we did in geometry, and maybe you saw last year, is that if you take the sine of an angle, it's going to equal the opposite side over the hypotenuse. And if you take the cosine of an angle, it's going to equal the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. And if you take the tangent of an angle, it's going to equal the opposite side over the adjacent. So that's where this word comes up, SOHCAHTOA, because it stands for the sine is opposite over hypotenuse, the cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and the tangent is opposite over adjacent. So it kind of puts everything together and it gives you a way to memorize the way that it goes. So this might seem kind of confusing, but here's how it works. If I have a triangle, and it's got a 90-degree angle in it, and let's say I know that this is 30 degrees, and this is, I'll say this is 10, and this is x. You can use this to find x. What we do is, we choose an angle. So I choose an angle. I figure out what two sides I want to deal with. Well, since I know this, I want to use this side. It's across from the 90-degree angle, so this is the hypotenuse. This side is what I'm trying to find. It's across from the angle that I picked, so this is called opposite. I then go over to the trig functions, of which I have three, and I figure out which one involves the opposite and the hypotenuse. So in this case, it's the sine. It has opposite and hypotenuse. None of the others do. Cosine has hypotenuse, but not opposite. Tangent has opposite, but not hypotenuse. So I pick sine, and I set up an equation. And instead instead of saying the sine of theta equals opposite over hypotenuse, I say the sine, theta is the angle, so the sine of 30 equals opposite over hypotenuse. Now I take that equation and I solve it. Here's where you need your calculator. You need your calculator to find out what is the sine of 30. So I know that the sine of 30 is 1/2, but you can get that on your calculator. So the sine of 30 is 0.5. And then to solve it, we multiply both sides by 10. So that cancels. And x is going to equal 10 times 0.5. So x is going to equal 5. Yay! Let's do one more. All right, let me turn the triangle around. And let's say I have, this is 40 degrees, and this is 6, and this is x. So step 1, it's a right triangle. Good. Step 2, choose the angle. Well, I'm going to use this one because it's the one that I'm given. I could use this because I can find it. I know that the 3 angles of a triangle add up to 180. So I could find that angle and use it, but I might as well use the one that I already have. Okay? So if that's the angle I'm talking about, then I want to label the sides. Here's the 90-degree angle. If I go across, that's the hypotenuse. So I don't want to use that. I don't know anything about it, and I'm not trying to find it. So if this is 40 and I go across, here's the opposite, and the other one's the adjacent. I go over to the trig and I try to pick which one is opposite and adjacent. So if you look, this one has opposite and adjacent, so I need to use tangent. So I say the tangent of theta, which is the angle, equals opposite over adjacent. So 6 over x. Once you get the equation, you got to get your calculator. I don't know the tangent of 40. When you have your calculator, you need to make sure you're in degree mode. So if you're not, feel free to ask. So I put in my calculator tangent of 40, and I get a decimal point 839. It keeps going. Give yourself 3 decimal places. And now we have to solve that. When x is on the bottom, it's annoying because it's more complicated. But what I have to do is multiply both sides by x. So the x's cancel, and then I have 0.839x equals 6. So to get x, I need to divide by 0.839. So x equals 6 divided by 0.839, which is 7.151. It's always good to stop for a second and make sure that your answer makes sense. So 7.151, that makes sense. The other side was 6. If I got an answer like 0.024, that wouldn't make any sense. But getting an answer like that does. So that's it. For the next lesson, we'll figure out how to find the missing angle when I have the sides. Ooh, I bet you can't wait. So now you can do worksheet number 1. Yay!